Welcome to Wellbeing Living Well channel. Today, we're honored to have guest Cort from Courtside Ventures. So he will introduce about his focus wellness, and also we dive into his enthusiastic includes our late life or he loves ocean, etc. So we dive into it. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Please repeat after me. よりよく生きる.
よりよく生きる.
Let's dive into it.
The more you use some of these devices, the more anxiety it can build in your head. Probably the biggest commonality amongst all those three categories is this idea of identity, of each of those categories playing a role in how people interact with the world and describe themselves. You just put it on there.
Kind of scary.
Yeah, kind of
Cash it in the back.
Jason's.
Yeah, exactly. Jason.
You covering or spent time in various areas across the United States. So, how has living in different environments impacted your well-being views or your life? So,
A great question. I spent time in the Midwest in Indianapolis, a little bit of time in LA, and I'm currently in Miami. And I've noticed that to be happy and healthy, personally, I have to be by an ocean. I have to have nature. For some reason, it calms me. And so the Midwest is great. It's very quiet, and I enjoy that peace. LA has the beach, but it's too busy. It just makes me stressed out all the time. But Miami's a nice mix of both. And I live kind of on the coast, on the beach, and it's a way for me to start my day on the ocean every day and just a sense of peace.
how did you find the ocean is needed for your lives? When or how?
I grew up, most of my family's in LA, in Southern California. So I grew up visiting them quite a bit. We would always go to the beach, my siblings. And I liked it the most of anybody in my family, of just being in the water. So I knew it was something special to me growing up. And so I made it a goal in the career to eventually find a place to be by the ocean. And it just, once you start your day and build that habit, I realized very quickly for me, my days are just better. I'm happier when I started on the beach.
So, just going to the beach or do something?
I get in the water every day, no matter what the weather is. If it's raining, if it's cold, if it's super hot. There was a few months ago in Miami, it was a weird cold day. It was like 50 degrees and the water was cold, and I still got in. I have to do it, be in the water.
Wow. Is it snowing?
Thankfully not snowing in Miami, yeah, but still felt like it could. It was,
How about storming? So there.
oh yeah. As long as there's not lightning, all good.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. How long do you take ocean?
Not long. I'm usually only in for about 5 minutes. And it's not intense swimming. It's just kind of finding peace and staying there, getting under the water, full immersion, holding your breath for a little bit.
Kind of immersion.
Yep.
Kind of mindfulness.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Do you by yourself or with your wife? With your family?
I love my wife, but I do it a lot by myself.
I think your wife don't like to.
She doesn't like the water as much. She loves the sand and being on the beach, but I have to be in the water. She doesn't like the water.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense. So you have the, practice or habit to go to the ocean. So other than that, do you have any practice for your well-being?
I'd say the biggest ones, other than starting the day on the beach, is I try and exercise probably about 5 days a week. A little bit of strength training, a lot of walking, a lot of steps. And then trying to end the day with a little bit of peace and quiet. So whether that's meditation or just going for a walk where no one else is and just quiet.
So as you mentioned, you use the Apple Watch, Apple Health. So you analyze your data from your body, like using Ring or using other devices.
I've tried just about every single one that's out there. And I'm actually starting to pull back on the wearables a little bit and not use them as much. They're super helpful. And I think they tell you a lot of data about your body, but there's actually some interesting studies right now that show the more you use some of these devices, the more anxiety it can build in your head related to your data. And so, for example, I don't know if you've ever used like Aura or Eat Sleep or Whoop to track sleeping. Sometimes if the device tells you that you slept bad, it gets in your head and it makes you feel like you're not as healthy for the day or not as recovered. And so I'm trying this period right now where I don't wear any electric devices. I wear a heart rate monitor when I go for runs and walks to track my heartbeat. But other than that, I don't do anything right now.
It's interesting story. I think every person in the US try to get data from their body. I've never heard of the insights. So it's a latest study or kind of.
I'm happy to send it to you. Yeah, it's emerging data that is coming out. And it's not for everybody. And I actually personally think most people should, at least for a little while, try wearables and get data. How else are you going to know about your body? But if you do it too much, sometimes it can get in your head from being a little worse.
It's amazing. Yeah. I think I just started using Green, but I'm not sure what's the data suggests for me.
So you're still learning.
Yeah, it's just the data, but I need to learn
Yeah.
from the data. But yeah, as you mentioned, anxiety is, I have to be well, or I have to sleep well.
Yeah.
Yeah, etc. Yeah.
The mind is also a very powerful thing. And so when our data tells us that maybe we aren't feeling the best, we didn't get the best night of sleep, it gets in your head. Whereas if you aren't thinking about it, sometimes your brain can help you recover faster and think better than you actually are. So I'm trying it out right now. We'll see if it works.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I remember, Little Lemon report World Health, and it says anxiety to be well is really emerging in young generation. But maybe it's similar.
Very much, yes.
And also, how do you bring the red light for us? So we
I did.
Yeah, we have to see this song.
I hope this doesn't scare anyone that's listening. Yes.
We can edit, but
So have you seen red light before?
sure, I've seen in the CES or kind of tech conference, but I've never met people who use.
So I have one at home that's a big panel. I do it for my full body.
Mhm.
This is a smaller version for when I travel.
Okay.
So it just goes on the face. I'm going to turn it on. And you just put it on there. Kind of scary.
Yeah, kind of
Attach it in the back.
Jason's.
Yeah, exactly. Jason, yeah. And hopefully you can hear me, but
Yeah, I can give you.
to give you an idea, it's all just a bunch of red lights there. It's very good for your skin and mitochondria and health. So it's great for the face when I'm traveling, but when I'm home, I do it every day on the entire body, and I see huge impact.
About wearing the 10 minutes or
10 minutes is all you need. Yes. Yeah.
but is that sort of kind of X-ray or I don't know. That's only LED light. So using some kind of technology.
It's a certain wavelength of red light, very, very specific, that is meant to go deeper into your skin. So it helps with your skin overall, makes your skin smoother, but it also helps with energy. So I wake up every day in the morning and go in front of red light. And it wakes me up, gives me energy in a fully normal way. It also helps regulate some of your sleep patterns. So when I do red light in the morning, I fall asleep better at night as well. Just looks funny.
Yeah, so we can do with this mask. That's
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So we want to move into your work. So is that like you invested in?
No, that's a personal interest.
Personal.
We've looked at a few red light companies and have not invested in them.
Okay, I got you. I think we didn't do the introduction, so
Sure. That's okay.
So let me know, what do you do for your work, for your business?
Yeah, so I'm a principal at a venture capital firm called Courtside Ventures. We look for and invest in very early companies in the categories of sports, gaming, and wellness. And so I lead a lot of our wellness investing, where we are looking for companies mainly at the seed stage, which for us is everything from just an idea all the way to just a little bit of sales and revenue, but just very young companies that we hope end up being big one day.
So you focus only on wellness, or combining the idea of, intersection of sports wellness or gaming wellness?
Yeah, so we're a team of 5, and all of us focus on all 3 of our categories, sports, gaming, and wellness, but we each have a specialty. So my specialty is wellness, and we will invest in just pure wellness technology. A lot of it is a little bit more consumer focused. But there oftentimes is a lot of overlap within those categories. So we made various investments that cover both sports and wellness, or maybe gamified wellness, to your point. So it's everything.
So could you give us a concrete example? Your focus on wellness. What is an interesting story? Like there's company technology.
Yeah, so we are investing in our fourth fund right now. And so one of our most recent investments, the first one out of that fund, is a company called Eternal. It is a fascinating company. The easiest way to understand it is healthcare for athletes. So for the longest time, we have been tracking just this overall interest in the US, and I would argue abroad, of shifting from, a reactive type of healthcare system of only treating you when you're sick to preventative. Taking a proactive approach to your personal health and wellness. And there's a ton of great companies that we can talk about that are out there doing that for the broad consumer. What we haven't seen very much before is thinking about that for athletes. And so the easiest way to think about Eternal is if you are a marathon runner or a cyclist or a golfer or a baseball player and you want to play your sport into your 70s, 80s, and beyond, Eternal is the software layer and digital solution and evaluation that helps you do that from a proactive medicine. So they're doing all kinds of testing, coaching, evaluations, treatment that helps you to stay healthier for longer.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's for the professional athlete or?
No, it's not. It's a lot of former pro athletes, but it's really for people who see themselves as athletes for the longer haul. So how we describe it is people who probably see themselves in the top 10%, not of skill, but of how much they care about their sport and want to do it. So there's a difference between maybe somebody who played a sport as a child and gave it up versus somebody who still runs, even though they work full time into their 40s and want to keep running later on in life.
Interesting. So that's literally, intersection of sports and well-being.
That's right.
So, wow, that's an interesting story. So I just want to ask you, you invest from the letters from Courtside Ventures. You said you invest in sports, gaming, wellness, but literally you invest in identity. So I want to ask you, what does that mean?
Yeah. It's a fascinating question we've been asking ourselves a lot. On the website or what we publish publicly, we describe our investments as sports, gaming, and lifestyle. There's three distinct categories, right? But we often take a step back and try and evaluate where markets are going and see commonalities amongst the three. And we've been talking about this a lot of probably the biggest commonality amongst all those three categories is this idea of identity, of each of those categories playing a role in how people interact with the world and describe themselves. They are categories where people have aspirational career paths. They spend an extra amount of disposable income and extra personal time. A lot of times, friend groups and social circles are built around these categories. They are a way that people ultimately end up describing themselves and their identity. So let me give you an example, right, of fitness enthusiasts using wellness as an example, right? If you're a former athlete and maybe you are training for a marathon or you are always in the gym and health and wellness is top of mind, a lot of times it impacts lots of areas of your life. It is, you meet people through your wellness activities. Maybe it's workout classes or training buddies or people like that. You're spending extra money that way. And when you meet new people, you're telling them your name, you're telling them where you're from, and you're telling them what you care about. And it almost becomes a part of your identity and the way that you interact with the world. And so it creates very sticky categories to invest in where people spend extra money and they really care about these passions, which we think is a great space to be in.
So it's kind of like a switch, interact with people with enthusiastic or kind of feel like alive.
It's almost passion categories. Yeah, this is also how we describe it.
Cool. So you invest in these services or invest in entrepreneur with passion? Which is correct.
Hopefully both. Yes. The company definitely needs to fall into our categories, but it's so hard to have a founder that you invest in that doesn't care deeply about the category that they're working in and creating a company. So many times it's both.
Interesting. So how about yourself? So apparently you have that passion for this section, but as you know, startup ecosystem, especially the VC funds, it's very hard business, I guess. So how do you balance your hard work and your well-being? So kind of you have a passion both sides, I guess. So how do you balance these things?
Honestly, I think I'm very lucky that I get to invest in and work in a category that I care about. I've done it both when that's been true and that's not been true. I think it makes for the best way to work as well. I mean, I obviously, which we talked about, have my habits of what I care about on the wellness side, and it's part of my daily activity, but I try and make my work life function within my wellness section. So for example, I oftentimes find companies through workout classes that I go to or groups that I'm a part of, or maybe there's some sort of fitness or sport retreat that I go on that I can find founders in and get connected through. So that's the beauty of early stage investing is it really works best when you layer the two together, personal and professional.
Well, that's fascinating story.
Mm.
Yeah. So before that, so what brings you to interested in wellness? So before becoming busy investor or enthusiastic for your well-being. So before that, what is the reason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not perfect in it, right? But I think from an early age, I had a parent who passed away very young, and it kind of got me started on this whole just thinking about life and overall mortality and really what I cared about quite a bit within it. And so from an early age, it was just a curiosity of mine, given that experience. It's taken different forms in different stages of life, you know. I'd say previously it was very fitness focused and always working out. And now it's kind of led me more into kind of mindset and peace-based wellness search. But it's always been there for a long time.
Interesting. But when you choose the high intensity workout,
I do like HIIT workouts, yes.
yeah. But you do the medications well.
I do everything.
Interesting. You were an expert on this well-being or wellness sector, lifestyle sector. So could you tell us the big trend in this sector in the US?
Probably the biggest one that we're following, and it's been around for a little while, but it's really picking up steam, and we kind of talked about it before, is this shift from reactive care to proactive care. From traditional, you go to the hospital or the doctor when you don't feel well, you're sick, that's when you go seek help and care. There's been this shift over the past few years into preventative health, of not waiting until you're sick, but instead thinking about how do I most optimally treat my body and stay healthy before I ever get sick. And that's led to a lot of different trends within the US and abroad of, first example we saw obviously a long time ago was wearables, which we talked about, but it's shifted quite a bit into other areas. We're looking a lot into the blood testing space so that people can proactively see at a deeper level their biomarkers and maybe anything that's off. We look a lot in the scanning space of full body scans. We spend a lot of time in the hormone space as well. And from a preventative landscape of, if you're thinking about having kids one day, where are your hormones and fertility at? When you're aging and getting older, that's oftentimes where hormones drop off. So all of these things fall into the greater trending category of thinking about your health from a preventative.
It's interesting. And it seems really good things for us. But do you see any concerns about this technology or this trend?
I actually think it relates a lot to the sleep conversation that we had, but sometimes the more data that you have can really get in your head, you know, and we always describe here in the US kind of the idea of being a hypochondriac, you know, of always being worried about something being wrong with you. And I think if you take it to the extreme, you always end up in a worried state. You're always spending money and doing more, but I think there is a healthy balance that people can find.
Yeah, makes sense. How about the kind of exercise? So you do the walking or exercise, and as a matter of fact, we interview some people and they do exercise.
Yeah.
So what is the trend of exercise in the US?
I think the biggest one that's hardest to avoid in the US right now is the shift to strength. For the longest time, we've seen cardio as the most popular across the board, whether you're walking, running, cycling, getting your heart rate up. There's been a huge shift in understanding of if you are going to be healthier into your later years, we've learned that you have to have more muscle on your body or else you just get brittle. And so there's been a large shift in the US to strength training as a whole. Not just for men, which used to be a stereotype of, this younger male getting strong, but especially for women. It's probably even more important for women, especially as they age, to have as much muscle mass and lean muscle on them as possible. So lots of different concepts that we're seeing pop up in the US of gyms, at-home workouts, at-home strength that's purely built for muscle.
But maybe I have some bias, so man, I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe muscle, but for women, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
Here's a common sense for.
Yeah, and it's not, the medias can make it challenging sometimes to understand of like, not big muscle growth kind of thing, but not getting brittle. When we age, we naturally, all of us, everybody, lose muscle every decade more and more. It gets harder to keep it on your body. So it makes it easier for you to fall and not catch yourself and break a bone. You just get more brittle. And so, especially for women in post-menopause, there's a huge drop-off. You can see a curve in overall muscle mass on the body. So it's become very important to proactively keep it on. Again, not from muscle builder or anything like that you might see on the beach, but more just overall muscle health.
It's interesting. So we need to do muscle training for future building.
Right. Yeah.
That's important. So we have to see the future. So what we want to do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's kind of other way around the question. So what would you tell your youngers? So from about living more, what do you advise?
That's a great question. Probably a few things. I mean, I would just get more active and less focused on specific training plans. I remember, in younger school age years in college, I was so focused on a plan, of like you see a popular workout program, 10 weeks of just doing biceps or something like that. And it's less about following a strict plan and more being continual about it. You're never missing a day. Not that you have to be perfect, but just move and do something. I would have walked more. I would have spent more time in the ocean. Like, that's great exercise as well. It doesn't always have to be an hour in the gym doing that every single time, but just do something consistent.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, you have the flexibility.
That's right.
Oh, cool.
There's so many different ways to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times we get caught up in the most popular way, but that's not necessary. I think the best way to stay healthy is whatever works for you and whatever you do consistently.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. This one gonna be the last question. Okay. So in a 5 words, so could you give us your final thoughts on how we all be well? So kind of advice for our subscribers, our listeners.
In 5 words?
In 5 words.
I guess what I kind of just said, but do whatever gets you moving.
Do whatever you get moving.
Yeah. I hope that's 5 words.
Yeah. What is the background of that? Mm.
I think a lot of times, and I fall into this too, of when I'm trying to be healthy, I get so hung up and stopped on trying to do it perfectly. And sometimes you just need to get out and move. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be as simple as a walk or, doing a few squats on the beach or something like that. But just simply moving is sometimes the best thing.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking time.
I appreciate it. Yes, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.